Ladies and gentlemen, here we are, season 2, episode 2. Episode 1 got 271,000 views. We got more views than Piers Morgan got complaints for calling a liar a liar. Happy days. Duncan, what do you think about that joke?
I love it. I think it's topical. It's of the moment. And, I mean, who doesn't want to beat Piers Morgan?
There we go. Duncan Caslow, not interrupting. I am joined, as always, by a plethora of greatness. As always, let's get him out of the way first, because someone has to. Simon Sampson, my good man, how the Charles Dickens are you?
I'm very well, thank you, Adam. How are you?
I'm really well, thank you. Been a epic week. A lot of irons in the fire that need dealing with. Going to a professional wrestling viewing party later this evening. Going to be a long one. Might be carnage. Who knows? But ultimately, I'm already disabled. What's the worst that's going to happen?
Well, you don't know. Coming back to the viewing figures, I would like to point out one thing, that for Nigel Farage, even Nigel Farage got 100,000 views on his first show on GB News, and we got 271,000. Up yours, Nigel.
There we go. We are nearly 3 times as good as Nigel Farage, which ultimately is every man's dream. Is that not right? We've heard from earlier, Duncan Caslow.
I think that's every man's dream. To be bigger than Nigel Farage, I think it's an honourable goal and one that we can sustain.
And how has your week been, good sir? What's been going on in the world of the Casburn?
Oh man, we're gearing up for the end of the school holidays. The kids go back this week, and I, for one, will be celebrating with a champagne breakfast in the morning.
There we go. Duncan Casburn can't wait to get rid of his children. You heard it here first. And moving on to someone else who may or may not feel remarkably similar. Who knows? Life's a lottery. Be lucky. He is the greatest editor in the world.
Oh, my good Lord.
How's it going, Chris?
It's going well, mate. My kids have gone back. So I'm happy. I'm very, very happy. And I'm not hiding it. I'm glad they've gone back. It was driving me insane. It was such a long summer and the weather was rubbish. So, but we did have a good time at Simon's though, didn't we?
So to break the fourth wall slightly so everyone knows what we're referring to. Myself, Chris and Sammy went to go and see Simon in Leicester / Loughborough, depending on whether you drove or got the train, yada, yada, yada. And Chris, you had your first hog roast, did you not?
I did, and I wasn't that impressed, to be fair. It wasn't that good, especially with that was it breakfast baguette we had the next day, which was awesome compared to what we had. It was like a mess in a BAP, and it went everywhere as well. It was horrible.
And you didn't believe that you're actually walking on a volcano, did you?
No, I didn't. I didn't.
And you wouldn't have believed me unless the museum was actually open, which it is like twice a year, and it was just open that day. And I said, look, this is a 650 million year old volcano. And they went, no, it's not. And I went, yes, it is. And they wouldn't believe me.
It's not the first fact you've stated that.
I was going to say, you're right about something, Simon, because your history of this is not good. If you look at the last episode with your random facts.
DW.
Anyway, I've gone on far too long. It's time to go into our recurring segment. Very much. It certainly lightened up the last episode. Stupid questions. Chris, dare I ask, what do you have for us this episode?
This week, the first question is, what are some red flags to watch out for in daily life?
Potholes.
Okay.
That
makes sense.
Yeah, I'm in a wheelchair, and they're absolutely a nightmare for me. I bounce all over the place. I crash into the road. It's a dangerous thing these days.
Duncan?
Potholes are a real pain. I'm also going to go with actual red flags. like if you see a red flag, that is a literal red flag, and you probably shouldn't go any further. And anything that's on sale or on discount. My brother is a sucker for a sale, and he'll come home with like a massive bag full of crap. And I'm like, oh, it was on sale. And I'm like, dude, cheap shit is still shit. Like, what are we doing here? When are we ever gonna need the Final Destination box set for £8? If a burglar breaks in and goes, give me all your money, are you gonna hand him that and him go, oh, fair enough, I'll leave now? No, you're not. You got mugged off, mate. Like, So yeah, sales. Any place that's had a closing down sale that's gone on for longer than 2 weeks is probably not closing down. And yes, the bedding shop and luggage shop in Croydon, I mean you're goddamn right. No matter how loud you shout it at me, I still don't believe you. Go away, leave me alone, and let me be hungover in peace.
Can we say Sports Direct? Because the umbrellas outside Sports Direct have been there for 20 years and they're still £4.
I think we opened up a Pandora's box with Adam. It started out with red flags, and then suddenly this tidal wave of red flags.
But also, from an accessibility point of view, Sports Direct are awful. Like, how can we display our stock in a way that might kill anyone and everyone at any given time? And where can we put our tills so that no one in a wheelchair can get to them to pay for the things they want that haven't already killed them?
Sports Direct, if you're interested in sponsorship, please contact us.
We got another one. Yeah.
Hey, Mike Ashley, please don't call me. I met you once. You're a dick. I don't want to meet you again.
Duncan, what's your answer for this one? What's the red flag?
Any email that starts with "Dear Customer" rather than my name, because you know it's going to be dodgy. The people who are going to email me know my name, and it will say, hey.
I mean,
it's been sent out in bulk as well, hasn't it?
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, if you're part of a PCC list, warning.
I mean, Duncan, if you've got an email from Dear Customer, surely that Nigerian prince must owe you a fortune.
Oh man, apparently I'm genuinely related to half the royal family worldwide, because the amount of princes, princesses, lords, ladies, gentlemen, I apparently have inherited from. A good 2/3 of the world's wealth should be rightfully mine.
See,
absolutely, I agree. And so we can add Lagos, Nigeria to the list of people who can potentially not sponsor us.
Now, this is going to sound really bad, but I've got to be careful when I get an email from a lord or lady, because it could be genuine. There's 850 lords and ladies in the House of Lords. I know half of them. So if I get an email from them saying, I'm Lord Campbell from, Sussex or something, it could well be true.
There's the name drop. There's the name drop. Cross it off the bingo list.
For those of you that... If you had Simon put his dick on the table on your bingo card, you can properly take that off. Hell, take it off twice just to really drive the point home.
I did make up Lord Campbell I did make up Lord Campbell. He's not a real person. I just use him as an example. I don't know who there probably is a Lord Campbell, but I don't know who they are.
Okay.
You don't know who Lady Cohen Campbell's husband is. Answer a little bit. Lady C, if you're watching this, big fan, please don't come after me. I saw you in the jungle. I want none of that aggro. None of that aggro. The amount of hair Duncan Valentine lost, spending 2 weeks with you, none of it. Love you, big fan of your work. You totally don't look like a fella. Let's all move on.
Right. So in the past 5 minutes at the start of this program, we've insulted Nigel Farage, Lady C, Piers Morgan. Who else was there?
Nigeria.
Nigerian princes.
Sports Direct, yeah.
Sports Direct. Oh, I'm so glad I've got insurance.
as lists go, that's a pretty good list to insult. That's I'm happy with that. Shall we move on to question 2?
Go on.
I think that's a fantastic idea.
This one I'm actually interested in, and this is right up Simon's street. What's the best news you've ever received?
Go on, Simon. Best news you've
Oh,
ever
he's
received.
taking a drink.
That's how long this answer is going to be. He's taking a drink before he started talking.
So a few years ago, I took Leicester City Council to court for disability discrimination, and I couldn't afford to do it myself. So pay someone to do it for me. I had to represent myself, and we had to stick £2,000 on the credit card to pay it. And I used quotes from The West Wing, Philadelphia Story, and A Few Good Men. And I basically, had the judges and magistrates laughing their heads off in court because I was so bad at being a lawyer, representing myself, and I won at the local magistrate court.
A case so strong that even though you quoted movies, you still won it.
Yeah. At the local level, I won, yes.
Okay, let's switch it up. Let's move on to Duncan this time. What's the best news you've ever received?
It turns out I'm related to a Nigerian prince. No. I think the best news. People will know. I met my wife on Facebook playing a Scrabble, and there was that moment where I'd come to the UK to meet her, and there's that moment you step off the bus, and the person is female and is the same as in the pictures that you were sent. That was a pretty good moment.
The best news you've ever received is not being catfish.
You basically, it wasn't just some hairier guy.
Rock and roll.
So the best news you got is you came over from Australia and your wife was female.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, playing on the internet, you take your risks.
Does that qualify, or is that the most relief you've ever felt? I'm not sure that's news.
No.
Like, oh, she's a woman. That's news.
I mean, the boundaries on that one are quite blurred because mine's in a very, very similar vein. I once took a paternity test for no reason, literally none. We never had sex. Why would I? But hey ho, here we are. I'll wank in a cup if it makes you leave me alone. And then it came back not the father, and I was like, yes, get in.
Wait, where was the beginning of that? Okay, that was weird. Okay.
Thank goodness I'm really bad at the sex. Otherwise, I might have a kid.
Right, let's move on to question 3. I don't want to talk about Adam having
Go back
sex
to that
anymore.
red flags question.
God. Oh. Right. Leads well into this question. What's the grossest word in the English language?
Moist.
Whoa.
Moist or gusset. One of the two. And if someone's got a moist gusset, that's completely unacceptable. Like I said, bad at the sex.
Right. Can we take out the swearing?
Let's start that again.
You've got Adam hot and bothered now.
Adam.
He's all fogged up again.
There he is.
Right.
Okay.
Chris,
I'll do it again. I'll do it again. Okay, so the next question is, what's the grossest word in the English language? No swear. No, not you, Duncan. It was Adam saying.
What did you call me?
We're going to get to next. You didn't get our email? Oh, we can't have you anymore. We're sorry. We can't have you.
Oh, we're so unprofessional.
Right.
Oh dear.
There's going to be a cut, but I don't need to read that out. So just tell me your answers, okay? No swear words.
Moist.
God, that was horrible when you said that, especially like that.
It felt really wet.
I am so turned on right now.
Oh.
So in my case, the worst thing in the English language is erection, because Adam said he's turned on, which I don't want to think about. So for me, it's erection.
We need to get out of this segment.
He's just upset he can't get one. For me,
Where's the Bluetooth punchline with
not
it? Come on.
crime because I'm not a hate crime because I'm not wrong. Oh, gusset.
Wow.
Right,
Wow. But
moist
that's
and
below the
gusset.
waist, literally.
And if you've got a moist gusset, then don't tell me about it.
Right. Is everybody done? Because I want to get out of this segment.
Well, there we go. Moving on to the next segment, which may or may not be better than the one we just had. Who knows how Chris edited this one? Who knows? Let's move on. Last episode, we spoke about the dinner and dissection event that is happening in Newcastle. And since we last spoke about it, a lot has happened, has it not, Simon Sampson?
A lot has happened. Me and Adam did an interview with the BBC about a week and a half ago. And what we found out as well this week is Newcastle City Council and the rugby club have said the event can't go ahead at the moment. So Caroline Lowbridge, who works at the BBC, has done some investigation into the people organising dinner and dissection. And basically, the comments they've made online are false. The information they've put out is incorrect. And the rugby club, who I spoke to the chairman just yesterday, actually said there is under no circumstances is the event happening at their rugby club and on their rugby pitch, because obviously they're going to put up a big top tent, because they said it's vile and disgusting. So when we went onto the website to find out where the new location was, it says secret location, which means they haven't got one.
But also, I also went onto the website. And now it's full of a lot of what I would certainly describe as passive-aggressive yet unsubstantial claims about how if you use the promo code support science, you can get 20% off your ticket price, which is always a sign of a well thought of and highly sold out event. And it's all 88% of NHS workers claim that these events made them more competent at their job, yada, yada, yada. And now it's all, to my mind, getting a little bit desperate. But it's also still, even after we have on multiple occasions expressed what our objections are, a tad tone deaf, and it still doesn't answer the questions that I've certainly been asking since the word go as to why Halloween, why a big top, and what are you actually adding to the science and medicine around specifically Joseph Merrick. And it's and whilst I still maintain I don't want the event to be cancelled, I think challenging the status quo is always a good thing. It all depends on how you're doing it and why you're doing it and what the MO is. I am getting very, very tired of the same old catchphrases and, dare I say, mistruths about it being a private event. It isn't a private event, otherwise I wouldn't have a ticket to it. An educational event, it's not an educational event, because if I turned up to uni and it was done in a big top with booze and food, I'd be like, well, Brighton has certainly lost their way slightly. And you can hide behind all the made up stats you want. It doesn't mean you aren't being sensationalist, vaudevillian, and archaic.
Can I read out this statement from Councillor John Paul Stevenson from Newcastle City Council? So I'm going to read this from my phone, so just bear with me. I urge the organisers to meet with the relevant charities for those who have lived the experience of a condition to understand the impact of their juvenile events. There are plenty of alternative, more mature avenues to learn about science and dissection without restoring to trivialising disability for an entertainment and profit. I have directed senior licence officers to take the appropriate action. So that, to me, sounds like that the council are saying they're not going to give a licence for this event to take place. So earlier this week as well, I sent them a message on Messenger because I'm disabled and I need to take my wife with me, who also is my carer. I also need, because it's a long way to travel to Newcastle by car, I have to stop overnight, so I have to find a suitable accommodation. So I sent them a message saying, can you help? I booked a ticket for the 28th. I've contacted the rugby club and they've advised me it's not being held there. I need to organise a carer and accommodation with disabled access. Please, can you let me know where the venue is taking place? And they sent this message back. Hi, thanks for contacting us. Due to the number of messages received, it may take a little while to respond. And then it says, roll up. We're heading back to 1885. And inside, Joseph Merrick, the Elephant Man. It actually says, inside Joseph Merrick, the Elephant Man. Yeah, as seen on Dragon's Den. Well, it wasn't seen on Dragon's Den because they didn't do this bit on Dragon's Den. Dinner and dissection collides with Victorian medicine for the greatest phenomenon.
So there we go. The second episode starting off just as heavy and just as intense as episode one. Because continuity, let's all move on to something that is certainly more lighter and more fun. I can say that with great confidence because we pre-recorded it. Myself and Mr. Duncan Casburn got to sit down with a disability legend, did we not, Mr. Casburn?
We did. I mean, everyone's been reveling in it the last couple of weeks with the Paralympics, and as someone who can't stand the Olympics, I actually really enjoyed the Paralympics. But we managed to get, so Chris and I have previously spoken with Elizabeth Wright on the Grumpy Dads, and we wanted to get her input on basically what where things are at with the Paralympics, what she thinks of certain aspects of it, and what she's now doing, which is just fascinating.
So, take it away, future us. Here we are, as if by magic. I'm in a different location. Don't let that throw you. This is still going to be good. I'm in Simon's kitchen. It's weird. And we are joined by our usual gentleman, Mr. Duncan Casburn. And we also have the aforementioned Liz. Liz, how is it going?
I'm good. As I mentioned before we started the show, I've got a non-alcoholic hangover today, so yay for me.
I can't believe that's just the worst of all situations, if you ask me.
I have two questions. It was just going to be one. Tell the people who you are, but now I'm going to add. And what is a non-alcoholic hangover?
It literally just means I was at a party last night and I didn't drink any alcohol, but I've still had the after effects today of being really tired, having a headache, craving all the greasy goodness of like a fry up and stuff like that, just without the actual benefit of having had the fun with the alcohol the night before.
I was watching TV the other day and the Just Eat ad came on. And I actually thought they're missing a trick. They need to get some kind of kebab thing so people who are in lockdown or isolation can still get their kebabs delivered when they're wasted.
Yeah.
They're really missing a trick there. They should mix it with, like, Jack Daniels and the kebab just arrives at your doorstep. It'd be brilliant.
Yeah. It's true.
Those who don't know, Liz is, we've spoken to Liz before on the Grumpy Dads, Chris and myself, and amazing person. only is she an Olympic or a Paralympic silver medalist for the swimming for Australia in the 2000 Olympics.
Yes.
Which you'll see the clip coming up. We're going to pop it in. You'll see her winning silver. But you do an amazing amount of work as well for sort of disabled charities and advocacy. Do you want to give us a bit of a rundown of what you do?
Oh my God, I've got my hands in, well, my hand, I should say, not hand, my hand in a little bit of everything. I've done a lot of speaking work over the years, talking a lot about the Paralympics, talking a lot about disability awareness, especially in schools and education. I think there's it's such an important thing to do, in that we should be educating children at a young age about disability awareness, disability allyship, all that stuff. So I've been doing a lot of that over the years. And more recently with the pandemic, I kind of did a massive pivot to now editing disability-led magazines. So I started off with Disability Review magazine, which, all kudos to them. They were losing an editor, and they recognized that actually the next editor should have a disability because they'll know exactly what should be going in the magazine. So they brought me on board to help them with that and be editor. And then off the back of that, I now edit a new startup magazine called Not Your Monolith, which is dedicated to bringing on board disabled writers and creatives, and also started my own magazine with a niche for disabled women and non-binary folk, which again, I employ 100% disabled writers and creatives and bring them on board and pay them a fair and equitable fee for their work, which is what we're all striving for, right? In every sector.
That's phenomenal. I mean, the reason I asked you to come on this week was purely because obviously the Paralympics are on. Yeah. And we're in the throes of it. And I thought it'd be really good to hear about, what happens after the Paralympics. And you're an inspiration to me because you've taken that and you've taken the fame and the notoriety that comes from being a Paralympian. And you've used that to really push your advocacy. I mean, how did these magazine things come about? What inspired those?
Yeah, well, with Disability Review magazine, obviously they brought me on board, and I've been working really hard to kind of create a magazine with that that is very intersectional and very truthful to the lived experience of disabilities. That's kind of a really more of a mainstream kind of magazine. But with the other two magazines that I'm working on, including Conscious Being, which is my own, is really so much about that representation that we just don't get in mainstream media. And it was literally with Conscious Being, my own. I thought, well, if no one else is going to do it, you know what? I'm going to start my own because this is ridiculous. It's almost like trying to make something that can have the potential to become mainstream. And I really hope that it does eventually, as we kind of build and grow, as opposed to kind of tokenism within more mainstream media that's out there now.
What is it you think people need to know if we're going to get away from this almost tokenistic, cliched representation of disability, where we either fall into victimhood, villainy, and the Paralympics, certainly the commentary in the UK, are particularly guilty of this. The halo effects of almost forced or exaggerated heroism.
I don't know if there's one answer. I don't know if I've got the answer to that personally. All I can do is throw ideas out there and have conversations with people like yourself about and get those different perspectives, because as the other magazine I edit called Not Your Monolith, the whole point is that we're not one of us is a monolith when it comes to disability. All of our experiences are so wide and diverse, and again bringing those points of intersection in, which is so important. But I just wish non-disabled people would understand that we're just human beings and we just want to live our lives the way that everyone else have the same access, have the same opportunities, have the same human rights, and to get married, have children, work, have education, all of that stuff. When I think of you know, back in the 80s when my parents had to fight to get me into mainstream education, and yet I still hear stories of that happening now. I still hear horror stories about, you know, people going through recruitment processes that reflect my experiences when I first was entering the workforce. And it just kind of feels like not much has changed. I think there's been a little bit of change, but in general, it's so systemic, you know, for me, which is a visible disability. And, you know, but then coming back to that idea of I'm not a monolith, of course, I understand that for people with invisible disabilities, they're certainly got other issues which I wouldn't understand and necessarily feel qualified to talk about in any given situation. So I think it's I just wish non-disabled people would understand we just want to be like everyone else and actually take the time to learn and listen and actually believe disabled people. That's another bugbear of mine, is we don't get believed about stuff that happens to us or that we experience. And how can we have change if we're not heard or believed?
Can you give us an example of that?
Well, actually, I spoke about it. I did a keynote the other day, and I actually brought this up as an example. It was a couple of years ago. I was in Australia visiting family, pre-pandemic, right? Pre-pandemic.
Before everyone hops on a car.
Yeah. And I wanted to get the train to visit my cousin. So my dad lives an hour north of Sydney, and my cousin lives in Canberra. And I was getting the train down to visit my cousin, and literally on this train journey, I had to catch 2 trains. And on this journey that took me all day, I experienced 3 very explicit examples of ableism, each similar but different in its own way. So the first time because it was a hot summer's day, I was wearing a dress, I was sitting on the station waiting for my first train, and this gentleman just walked up, literally sat right next to me, and then just like, I'm going to have a stare at your prosthetic leg, and I'm going to keep on staring at it until the train gets here. And it was just really awkward and uncomfortable. And I got up and walked away because I felt really embarrassed. And then once I got to Sydney, this woman, just out of the blue, I was standing there on the platform waiting for my next train on my phone, minding my own business. And this woman just walked up to me, and the first thing out of her mouth was, "What happened to you?" And it's like, well, that's a bit rude. You haven't even asked me what my name is first. Like, come on, at least introduce yourself before we hit the personal information kind of thing, right? And so I was just like, you know, so by the time I got on the train, I was just literally fed up. And now most people, when I tell them those 2 particular examples, they go, okay, I can understand why you'd be annoyed. But the third example from that day is once I got to Canberra, I stood up. I only had a backpack with me because I was only there for a few days, so I didn't have much. And I picked my backpack up, and the guy who'd been sitting next to me was like, "Can I help you with that?" And I was like, no, it's fine. I've got it. And he literally followed me off the train going, "Are you sure? I can take your backpack for you." And he tried to take it off me at one point, and I was like, "No, I'm fine. Like, just please don't touch my stuff." And for a lot of people, I think, especially obviously non-disabled people, they find that really hard to understand why I have an issue with that, because they're like, but he was just being kind. Like, you know, he was just trying to be nice.
But you'd already said, "No, I'm fine." And he persisted, and that's where the issue lies.
Exactly. He could have just left it, and I could have walked away from that going, "Oh, that was a nice man for asking." And, you know, but, you know, he took me at face value and left me alone after that. But he didn't. And that's the point where you start to feel uncomfortable. You start to feel humiliated and embarrassed and frustrated, and just, yeah, it's so that was a really bad day for me in terms of like, boom, 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 like really, really explicit experiences of direct ableism, which was just
the point where kindness leads to patronism, isn't it?
Yes, infantilization. You treat it as a child. It's just, yeah. So it's not kind, and it's kind of trying to get non-disabled people to believe you when you say it made me feel this way, and it wasn't right. Instead of just constantly trying to justify other people's behavior and the way that they engage with you.
Do you think this comes from a place of kind of misconditioning or misunderstanding, rather than, because I don't think a lot of it comes from there rather than pure malice? And I think it's because people have been brought up with these false portrayals and ideals that mean they find it very hard to separate the words disability and the words inability.
Oh, 100%, Adam. I agree, and that's just it. Like most interactions I have in my, I mean, even the woman who approached me and just asked me, like, well, what happened to you? It's she wasn't meaning it to be mean, you know. I kind of understand that, but I think for a lot of people, it's disabled people. You know, as you say, it's so attached to this word inability. I think because disability is so medicalized, and so for a lot of people, like the woman who asked me what was wrong with me, it's almost like I think people feel like they have a right to ask and know about what is actually, you know, if sometimes, you know, to be fair, sometimes I will explain to people if I'm in a good mood. Not nice about it, but it's being within the flow of a conversation or context. So, you know, you're having a conversation with someone, and then they might say, like, oh, you know, if you don't mind me asking, can I just ask what happened, like to your limbs? And, you know, I'm more than happy to say within context, like that I'm comfortable with that. Oh yeah, you know, I was just born with limb difference. That's all. They don't know why. It's just what happened. And, you know, then most people are like, oh, okay, that's fine. You know, it's cool. But it's got to be so much about, that understanding that you as a non-disabled person don't have a right to disabled people's bodies and to be asking those particular questions. But I think it is so stemmed in that medical model of disability that society is so entrenched in society, and again feeding back into, like you said, Adam, the idea of around inability and, oh, well, what can't you do because of your disability or impairment and condition, as opposed to what can't you do because society is inaccessible to you in some way.
Yeah, completely. And the idea, and it happens a lot more with physical disabilities rather than hidden ones. You almost become public property, and these sort of like the Victorian vaudevillian stare start to come out, and people demand to know things rather than trying to engage with the community and the person. They try and get to the medical straight away. And much like you said, when people like are saying, I don't owe you, and I don't owe you an explanation. I don't actually owe you anything. And you know, at least start with your name. Or people come up to you really awkward and go, can I ask you a really personal question? And whenever anyone says that to me, my default response is 8 inches, and then I walk away. That's how I handle.
Yeah, but I can't do that, Adam. unless you know, I kind of go like, yes, a double D or something like that.
If it were me, I'd be like, oh, shark attack. Just playing to the Australian, shark attack. Vicious bastard too.
Yeah, them sharks.
Should have seen the other shark.
Exactly. Well, exactly. That's what I remember. A friend of mine once said, like, you should totally go to the beach one day with like a bottle of beetroot juice and go in the water and like spread all the beetroot juice around and go.
I want to do a cutout of a jaw by a boat mark and just hold it up. Oh, I love it. Can I ask, going back to something you said before, this chap sat next to you and he was staring at your leg, and you alluded to it too, Adam, with it, the whole thing of staring. Yeah. Something that really troubled me, and I don't know if it should or not, it's one of those things that as an able-bodied person, it's not something that confronts me in the same way, but the Paralympics were being advertised this year on Channel 4, and their slogan was, it's rude not to stare. And I thought, to me, that seems really offensive. I would be upset about that. But I wanted to get feedback from you guys because I want to know what you felt about that.
You know what? I never thought I would ever say this, but can we go back to the whole superhuman advertising?
Yeah.
Not to stare, please. I never ever thought I'd say that, but
I was livid. I retweeted, went, for the record, staring is still rude. And I've been watching it. And Liz, I'd be interested to hear your thoughts. I have no problem with the Paralympics themselves. I think anyone, be they disabled or not, who's gotten to the top of their sport and is an elite athlete deserves nothing but respect. But there's this weird lexicon that exists around it. Like, what was it I heard the other day? And I rarely swear at my TV, but I did on this occasion. They're like, there are no winners and losers here. They're all heroes. And I'm like, no. See the guy with the gold medal around his neck? That guy there, that's the winner. That's the fucking winner.
Yeah.
And anyone else did not win. Everyone else lost to that guy or girl wearing the gold medal. Stop talking about the Paralympics like it's a fucking school sports day.
Well, this is it. I think, I don't know whether it was your tweet, Adam, or it was someone else's tweet who they tweeted about that as well. And I basically said, you know what, I'm a Paralympic medalist. I didn't win a ribbon just for showing up, people. Like, I worked my butt off to get there. And it is offensive to say that to the athletes as well as the wider disability community, completely, 100%. It's just ridiculous. And I wish that people would understand that, because you hit the nail on the head, Adam, with that whether you're an Olympian or a Paralympian, you're there because you love your sport. So, and this pays into the whole idea that not every disabled person wants to be a Paralympian, despite what the non-disabled community want to believe, because just as in the non-disabled world, there are some people that love their sport and want to work really hard and aim for the top, for the Olympics. There are sporty disabled people who love their sport and want to aim for the top and get to the Paralympics. It's exactly the same thing. And so it's this infantilization of people. It's like, as you say, like, it's a school competition or something. It's not. Paralympians work just as hard as Olympians to get to that level. And they completely 100% deserve that respect.
Yeah, a friend of mine, Chris Chelsea, is a Paralympian in Taekwondo, and I hang out with him. I go training with him, and I took a check kick with body armor on, about 30% of what you can do, and it winded me. It genuinely hurt me, and at that point I was like, bloody hell! If he did that full pelt and I wasn't wearing anything, I might die. Adam Pearson might die, and he doesn't have a stunt double for obvious reasons, and so it does the fact, because every like normally I'm a rocking disabled person. I'm like a rock star in that community, but for these 2.5 weeks every 4 years, I feel like I'm letting the side down slightly, because I watched a man with no legs run 100 meters in 11 seconds, and it took me 12 seconds to watch him do it. Am I all right?
It's so funny. So, I had my Paralympic career when I was a teenager, basically. I retired at the ripe old age of 20. It's like, I retired ridiculously young from
grandma.
Sport. And but what I wish a lot of people, so a lot of people do know me for my Paralympic career. And then, I say people, but, once I left the Paralympics, I'm not just, disability is one part of myself. Being a Paralympian is one part of myself. I'm not just boxed into that particular idea of what you have about those, because it's like I went to uni and I did fine arts degrees. I've had art exhibitions. I play the piano. I do a whole lot of other stuff outside of this kind of very fixed idea about between disability and Paralympics. But what I try to explain to people is that, again, not every disabled person loves sport and wants to get to the Paralympics. You have amazing disabled artists out there, musicians, writers, authors, media personalities. I'll point at Adam. I'm sorry, Duncan, but I'll point at Adam.
That's okay. I'm used to playing second fiddle to Adam. It's quite okay. Well deserved to be the first fiddle, to be honest. Not that I'm calling you a fiddler, Adam. Don't read too much.
No, that's not. He means the instrument, not the.
But even disabled doctors, disabled nurses, disabled teachers, we have
that's the thing. The thing
in life. People.
The reason when I introduced you, I didn't want to just stick on the Paralympic thing. It's everything that you've done afterwards. I think you're incredibly smart, and you use that as a way to get in the door, if you like.
Yeah.
You'd be a fantastic Jehovah's Witness.
You discovered my next career choice. Damn, I was keeping a secret.
but yeah, you use it in the right way. But it's everything you've done since that really gets me. And it's like, you know, how many? I can't say I'm editing 3 magazines. I mean, geez, that's huge. And you know, I've never done a TED talk. I've never keynote spoken at anything. I mean, the Grumpy Gits are going to be doing live at the NEC in a couple of weeks, but that's about the kind of way. I once played a concert at a high school reunion thing, but you know, it blows me away what you personally have achieved. And disabled, physically abled, fully abled, whatever, that's incredible. What you've achieved as Liz Wright.
Yeah, I think it's just because I'm too damn curious about everything, and I just want to do everything, and I keep on looking at my age, my birthday ticking over, going, I'm running out of time to do everything that I want to do. And I'm pretty certain, whether I was limb different or not, I'd probably be like that, because it's just, I think that's just a part of Liz Wright.
I suppose the big question is, what's next? What's the dream?
Ever since I pivoted last year into magazine editing, I've come to the realization that what I actually wanted to be when I was little, you know, when you're a little kid and you're like, oh, when I grow up, I want to be such and such. I realized what I should have been saying is I want to be a magazine editor, because I feel really empowered in that work. And so my main aim, you know, alongside all the other work that I do, because it does help income tick over as you're trying to build magazines and stuff like that. I still do a lot of consultation and keynoting still, but I would love to see the 3 magazines that I'm working on become more mainstream, become more seen, become more known, so that I can continue that work of amplifying voices. Because the magic with editing magazines is that you get to create something that is about storytelling and about emotion and about lived experience and about, you know, with conscious being, the amount of disabled women and non-binary folk who've said already, and we're only coming up to our 2nd issue coming out, that have said, I've seen myself in that magazine and it felt so good to actually see myself reflected in that. So that's what I want to aim for, is to reach the over 1 billion people globally who live with impairments and conditions and who experience disability, and have them actually see themselves in media and go, that's me, I feel seen, I feel heard, I feel believed.
It's an absolute pleasure sitting down and talking with you this evening. And where can people find you? Where can people find out what you're doing, what you're up to?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter under the really unusual Twitter handle of Esoul, which is a really bad anagram of my middle name, but ESIOUL. So at Esoul. You can also find me on Instagram. Just search for @Elizabeth L. Wright. You can also find Disability Review Magazine on the website, Disability Review Magazine. We're working on a website for Conscious Being, but on the meantime, you can follow Conscious Being on social media, as well as find us on Flipsnack. And Not Your Monolith, the other startup magazine I'm editing, that's launching very soon, but you can find Not Your Monolith on social media as well.
We will put all the links in the description. So go and check them out.
With that, all that leaves me to say is thank you very much for watching. For myself, Adam Pearson, for him, Duncan Casburn, and for her, Liz Wright. Have a great evening, and we'll see you all on the next one. Speaking of the Paralympics, I know it's all well and good watching it and seeing it play out as is and what have you. However, one thing people don't realise is the barrier to entry to become a Paralympian, particularly in terms of economics. And I'm going to throw to Simon Sampson on this one to extrapolate a tad more. So Simon Sampson, the economics of the Paralympics, talk to me.
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, I just want to say, look, the Paralympics are an amazing thing, okay? it's been so good for for Britain. It's given everyone a boost. It's encouraged talk about disability. I think we've won record medals. We're second in the table. Australia 8th. Sorry, Duncan.
Do we reassess that as per capita?
Only if you turn it upside down. And I mean, I've been amazed on what the Paralympians have done at the Paralympics. Okay. Mm-hmm. However, I'm sitting in my wheelchair right now, and it's an RGK wheelchair, and it's measured to me, and it's extremely comfortable, extremely well made, but it costs £6,000. Okay. And a few years before my injury in 2014, I would play badminton 3 times a week. I would go swimming most days. I was quite a healthy chap. I'd play rugby, I'd play cricket. I like to be active quite a lot. And I thought, I'm just going to get a little bit of that back. I'd like to play badminton with my mate who I used to play with all the time. And I just inquired. I called up a number of badminton clubs around Leicestershire to see if they've got a wheelchair I could borrow, and they didn't. Okay. So I went back to our GK wheelchairs, and it just for me to have a game of badminton, okay, was going to cost between £3,000 and £6,000 just to go down to the leisure centre so I can have a sports wheelchair to knock around a shuttlecock. So while the Paralympics are great, things like swimming, archery, shooting are always going to cost the same. Okay, they're not, unless you need a few adaptations here or there. But if you need to do a wheelchair sport, wheelchair rugby, wheelchair basketball, racing, or whatever it may be, you are restricted by the financial barrier of the sport, because not everyone has £3,000 to £6,000. So if they've been inspired by the Paralympics, and a lot of people will be, they're saying, I want to go and do this, I want to go and do that. And then they'll go, we can't afford it. Mm-hmm. And there's nothing out there to say, we're going to support you, because, how do you know if you're going to be doing it for fun, you might get bored of it in 6 months' time, or you're going to become a Paralympian in that sport? The chances of you becoming a Paralympian in that sport are incredibly slim. So for fun, for a couple of days a week to have fun with your mates, you need £3,000 to £6,000 just to have a wheelchair to play that sport. And it's heartbreaking for a lot of people, including myself, because it happened to me, who said, I don't want to spend £3,000 to £6,000 on a wheelchair to knock a shuttlecock around.
How do we make it more accessible for the everyman or every woman, quote unquote?
Yeah, it's really, really difficult to do so, because everyone is a different shape and size. So while you can get a few standard size wheelchairs for wheelchair rugby and stuff, okay, if you're bigger than the average person or smaller than the average person, it's going to be really difficult to maneuver that wheelchair, and then you're going to be at a complete disadvantage. I mean, if you look at the ones for wheelchair tennis, for example, they are literally sewn, basically, and strapped into those wheelchairs. They're made specifically for them. And I think some of those are like £12,000 to £15,000. Because obviously it's not just, are you going to sit in the chair? Are you going to kneel? Are you going to kneel on one leg? Are you not going to have any leg footstools at all? They are specifically designed for that individual. And so it is very, very difficult to get one standard wheelchair for one person.
I think that the issue of cost and disability is something that goes beyond as well. I can say from the perspective of my daughter, we've had the summer holidays where we've established it's very long and tedious when you've got kids at home constantly. But one thing we looked into was getting just a chance for my daughter to go out and have some holiday club time. We were lucky we found one that was disability friendly. It was an hour away. So I was doing 4 hours driving there and back twice a day to get her to it. The only one I could find locally were happy to have her on the condition that they have a one-on-one there full time. And that was going to cost me an extra £70 a day because she needs a one-on-one there. Mm. So for a summer holiday period, it was ridiculous. And, the cost of petrol 4 hours a day and the time was well worth, getting her out to that distance. But the costs associated with this stuff, people don't realise the incremental cost on so many things. And when you talk about things like swimming and stuff like that, when you get if people have got a prosthetic limb, having an adapted prosthetic is expensive as well. You know, if you know, even for the things like that don't seem to have as much cost, there's still a substantial cost involved, not equal to the cost of a custom fit wheelchair for a specific purpose. But I think that cost comes in so many ways for so many different forms of disability as well.
I do agree. I think it's split into two. I was going to ask the question, what is the solution? Is it a case of that wheelchairs are made more cheaper? Obviously, Duncan, with your point, it's a bit different because it falls that would it be social with the
I guess I'm taking
so it's kind of equipment and that two great points, but what's the solution?
There are a number of issues with this, because when I became disabled, I was given an NHS wheelchair and also a voucher, and it was £500 towards a NHS wheelchair, which is completely impractical and hurts so much that the only way for me to be comfortable was to spend so much on a proper wheelchair. So, and the thing is as well, if you're a child who wants to go into sport, in 6 months' time or a year's time, you're going to outgrow that wheelchair almost immediately. So, I mean, I've seen pictures of kids where they've got prosthetic limbs every few years because they've grown, okay, and they've got like 15 legs just standing by each other. And if you go into my garage, I've got a mobility scooter for long trips, I've got a mobility scooter for short trips, I've got a electric wheelchair for inside the house, I've got my NHS wheelchair in the case of emergencies, and for comfort, I've got my RGK wheelchair around the house. So I've got 5 wheelchairs just to go out and about, depending on where I'm going. You know, it's absolutely insane because there isn't one that fits all types. And so there is no easy solution for this. And the thing is, it costs money to make wheelchairs, and to make decent wheelchairs, it costs a lot of money. It takes a lot of skill, it takes a lot of engineering. And this is why they are not cheap and hugely expensive, and not everyone can afford them. And that's why when I see someone in an NHS wheelchair in the pub or the restaurant, whatever, it's almost heartbreaking, because I know how difficult that is, because we took it around Montreal and Ottawa for a couple of weeks. And it was the most difficult time getting around that place, because it was up, you know, my wife had to push me up the hill, down the hill. You just couldn't wheel yourself around. It was almost impossible. It was so hard to push yourself manually because it just wouldn't go properly. They are not made for purpose. They are made for, they're made cheaply. They are made for en masse, and they think one size can fit all, and it doesn't.
I think it comes back to what we briefly touched upon in the last episode, that the Paralympics are seen as just a sort of Disney-fied, inspirational porn version of the Summer Olympics, where they say overly well-meaning yet wanky things like there are no winners and losers here, everyone's a hero. And again, no, you see the guy with the gold medal, that's the fucking winner, and everyone else was the loser. Let's stop talking about it like it's a school sports day, and give it the same level of credence that we would the actual Olympics. I know, like, Paralympic GB taekwondoists, and I dare not patronize them, because I'll kick my head off my shoulders the same way as the non-Paralympic taekwondoists. And it's all well and good sitting there in a commentary box, careboarding, looking at you, saying these things. Well, if it's that heroic and it's that stunning and it's that brave, you go do it. You go sit in a wheelchair and play murder ball, and I guarantee you'll come back both limping and crying, and have a very different outlook and vernacular around it. And I think the big problem is just that, the vernacular. Because where the vernacular leads, the mindset will follow.
I think Liz Wright, who we've just interviewed, I think what's amazing about Liz is not just what she achieved at the Paralympics, it's what she's gone on to achieve. Whether you're disabled or able-bodied, physically disabled, whether you have, autism or anything like that. The fact is, what she's achieved with her life is remarkable, able-bodied or disabled. And I think that's the key to focus on. It's everything else. Disability should be celebrated in that fashion, not just in its box here. Does that make sense?
No, it makes perfect sense, but it's the condescending tone that Paralympians are treated with is the fact, I think I put it on Twitter, that it's treated like a school sports day where you're cheering on your kids. And I dare say it, Paralympians train just as hard as Olympians. So could you imagine what that would be like to say, oh, they're inspirational, they're great, look at them run or whatever? That must be so frustrating. To train so hard and to hear those comments like you're at a school sports day and people are a proud parent. As a nation, we're a proud parent. That would drive me crazy.
Completely. If I won a Paralympic gold and then heard, there are no winners and losers here, I was like, yes, there fucking are. Here's my gold medal. Go swivel.
Yeah. I was watching a bloke play table tennis with his mouth, okay? And he was serving the ball up with his toe. So he threw the ball up with his toe, hitting it with his mouth. And I was thinking, that's brilliant. I don't know if he won a gold medal. I don't know if he won a silver or bronze, but that was brilliant to watch. And that is Paralympic sports at its finest, okay? Someone who doesn't have any arms, who's playing table tennis, okay? And I think brilliant. Yeah. Chris looks really confused going, how has he done that?
No, I'm thinking that must be more difficult than actual table tennis.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
He was actually playing people with two arms. And he's playing with his mouth. Now I think that's completely unfair. However, it was brilliant to watch, and he got like 20 million views on Twitter or something. And that's what the Paralympics should be about. It should be celebrating diversity and disability and so on and so forth. But the winner is the one with the gold medal at the end.
So there we go. If you've got the money and you're disabled, Paralympics might be for you. However, if like me, you don't and you're ridiculously uncoordinated, just like in TV, you'll be fine. Moving on. What is our hilarious news story of the episode, Mr. Chris?
Well, this is quite recent. And I'm not sure if any of you have seen this, but Matt Hancock set up a GoFundMe page and people are paying to leave insults while donating. Has anybody seen this?
So to clarify, to clarify, I can go to a website, pay an insubstantial amount of money and insult Matt Hancock. I'm in.
Yeah. I will. I'm going to read it word for word.
Where's the money going? That's the thing. But if it's going to him to pay for his taste of different hog roast, screw it. If it's going to a charity to help fund something that he has single-handedly destroyed, then rock and roll.
It's a charity. It's a marathon. I'm not too sure. I think it's British Heart Foundation or something. But anyway, I will read it word for word because I've got two, and I will bleep out, but I'll read it word for word.
You go for it. I'll fill it in.
The first one is: you couldn't run a bath, you useless, incompetent weasel. That was left by Dominic C.
That was some good censoring right there, Chris. If that's the censored version, what were the originals?
The next one is you better run. I'm going to take you to the cleaners, you cheating Jeremy. And that was left by Martha Hancock, his ex-wife, well, soon to be ex-wife. So yeah, I didn't actually swear because the bleeps have covered it all. But yeah, so people are getting quite inventive by pretending to be someone else, like Dominic C there, Dominic Cummins, and obviously Martha Hancock as well. So if you're interested, go and donate because it's for a really good cause, but make sure you have fun with it.
He's raising thousands of pounds.
He is raising thousands.
I've just seen it online. It's brilliant.
He didn't need to run. He could have just said, leave an insult, I will donate it to charity, and he would have made the same amount of money.
But here's the thing, I don't know how to feel about him now. Because on one hand, everything everyone has written is more than likely true. But on the other hand, he's raising money for charity. It's like me going, oh, I cured AIDS, hey, by punching a dolphin. Oh.
Matt Hancock has been sacked from his job, been caught been caught on the subway, girls like trying to chat him up. He had an affair with his aide. I'm just wondering how long it's going to be before he's Prime Minister.
So, as always, it's been a pleasure. Reminder, we're going to be at Nidex doing this live because imagine this without the editing. Imagine this with Simon's real thoughts and feelings on the world. That's what we're going to be doing in Birmingham. Thank God we've got insurance. His words, not mine. So, from me, Adam Pearson, from Simon Sampson, Duncan Casburn, and Chris, second name, we have been the Grumpy Gits. This has been episode 2. We'll see you all in Birmingham. Love you all. Peace out.
What was second name?
Second name.
Did you forget my name?